Super Wildcard weekend is here. On one hand, we're happy that the playoffs are here, but on the other hand, we only got about a month left of football, so it's kind of a give and take situation. Anyway, Amir, you're joining us yet again here. How you doing on this Thursday morning?
I'm doing good, man. I woke up and cried this morning because football's almost over.
Yes.
It's playoffs, the best time of the year, but the fact that it's almost ending, it's emotional. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and first off, before we get into it, huge thanks to you guys. I woke up this morning, 10,000 subscribers. This time last year, we only had about 15 subscribers. So again,
crazy.
huge meteor, crazy rise in 1 year. But Amir, of course, you are part of that journey. So thank you for your contributions. But that is not where the glazing ends, of course, because now we have to show Amir his flowers, and sometimes it is unnecessary, right? It's not we want to go the opposite way. Anyway, as you see on your screen now, Amir had the handedly the best record out of anybody all season, including myself and including every guest that we've had on a Thursday show. 14-2 record. And I think what's most impressive about this is that it came in a week that is really, unpredictable in week 18. But 14-2, I was 11-5 on the season. Now, of course, you're 181-89. I'm 186-84. So I'm still in a pretty good spot as far as keeping a lead at the end of the
I'm coming
year.
back.
But I mean, yeah, I mean that when you have a week like that, I mean, you're definitely always back in the mix. But then let's move over. Let's move over to this first playoff matchup, and we're gonna go in order of course, when they're shown to us as viewers. But of course, on the top, you're gonna see the home team in every single matchup. On the bottom, road team. Hopefully that makes sense. On the right, you see Amir, his season record here. Of course, he's getting about 67% of the games right. And down here, and, if you guys remember from last year, I think this is kind of it was my first spark as a channel. It gave me my first big boost as a following perspective. I was 11-2 in the playoffs last year. Of course, I missed out on that Giants and Vikings game. I didn't want to buy the hype of the Giants, and they proved me wrong. And then I took Joe Burrow over Patrick Mahomes in the AFC title game. Again, that one also didn't go in my favor, but 85% correct rate, I'll take that on any given year. But your thoughts here about this matchup, Amir? Of course, we're both big Browns fans. The last time these teams met, the Browns won 36-22. Completely different situation this time. We have one of the best rookies that we've ever seen, ever, but especially at the quarterback position at CJ Stroud. He's back for this matchup. But I mean, nothing less. I mean, a couple weeks ago, Flacco had 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. Cooper, historic day. Your thoughts here on this matchup?
Yeah, when I look at CJ Stroud and the Texans, he's a rookie, but man, I can remember the last time we've seen a rookie that sparked this much fear, in the fans. The fact that, his stats, show that when he's behind, when he's trailing, it's by far the best in the league this year out of quarterbacks. And I'm looking at this game and I'm seeing, the thing that's standing out for me for the Browns. I'm taking the Browns in this matchup. The Browns, we're getting Grant Delpit this week. Ogbo is 100% back. Elijah Moore is 100% cleared. And I think the Browns have too much to overwhelm Stroud and his team. The Texans got a great run defense, but last week, against Houston, the run defense completely did not look good. The defense looked completely different. It looked way worse. And if the Browns can get the run game going in this game, it shouldn't even be close.
No, absolutely. I saw a stat, Amir, that Houston is 1-4 this season when CJ Stroud is sacked 4 or more times. On paper, it makes sense. But I mean, the Browns, that's one thing that we do. We're one of the best teams that is generating pressure, but can we land enough sacks? And I think, Myles Garrett in one of his first few playoff games in his career, I think this could be a big opportunity for him to make a statement. It's mentioned that you're taking the Cleveland Browns. I'm a Browns fan, and the close friends and family around me know I've been a bit of a disbeliever this season. However,
Me too.
I will take the Cleveland Browns this week, and I think I've doubted them way too many times this season to the point where it's foolish to continue to do that. How many times can you get the same thing wrong before you realize maybe I should make a change? But kind of like a lot of people's New Year's resolutions, right? But for the Cleveland Browns, I'm going to go with them here in this matchup. Again, we're on the road, best defense in football, and I think in the AFC, we might be the scariest opponent for the Baltimore Ravens. And given our predictions later on, I think we might end up facing them here in the second round. And I think that's going to be maybe the biggest game in the AFC side of things. But any last thoughts about this matchup here? I mean, it's not often. You're in your 20s, I'm in my 20s. It's not often we've seen the Browns in the playoffs for this only the second time for me, to be honest. I mean, any last thoughts here about this matchup before this weekend?
Hey, it's crazy you mentioned, you've been a disbeliever because, in the midst of the regular season, it was a point, in the season where I doubted against the Browns for like 4 straight weeks. And
Yes.
they proved me wrong
Keep
every single
going.
time. And, it's like now at this point, it's undeniable the fact that, we got Joe Flacco. And, I said this, a couple of weeks back, our mantra has always been run the ball and stop the run. But the fact that, our pass game has been elite these past weeks and looking like a top five to top three pass offense in the league, I think right now, we should be completely unstoppable until we face the Ravens.
Then we move over to the second Saturday matchup, and this one, I think it's fun, right? As we have the Kansas City Chiefs on one hand, 11-6. We've known them to be the next New England Patriots, is a good way to put it. Just dominate year after year in the Super Bowl picture, year after year. And of course, they have the best player in football. And this year, though, they've taken a bit of a step back. However, they still have those excellent players. On the flip side, though, the Miami Dolphins. I mean, no doubt the most explosive offense in the NFL. They've had some injuries, though. How is this matchup going to go for them? That's a big question. But these two teams, for the Chiefs, they're the reigning Super Bowl champions. They're looking to defend their crown, and it starts here in this very exciting matchup. Tyreek returns to Arrowhead, but this time in the postseason. These teams met in Germany. I think it was around the midseason mark. I want to say week
Yeah.
6 to week 8. I think the Chiefs won by a score. Correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong, Amir, but I think it was like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
21-14.
Yeah. 21-14.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was a very ugly game for the Dolphins because I think the Chiefs were up big and then the Dolphins scored twice late. Regardless, Chiefs won by a score. And I think, again, it sets up a very interesting rematch here. And I guess Tyreek is returning to Arrowhead, this time in a very big time game. But your thoughts here about this matchup as Patrick Mahomes doesn't lose much at home in his postseason career?
Yeah, despite the offensive struggles from Kansas City this season, history tells us that, when the playoffs hit, it's a whole different mode. And, I look at the game earlier this season, and, this Kansas City team shut the Dolphins all the way down. I was mentioning this past times, if it was any team to know how to slow down Tyreek or, stop Tyreek, it would be Kansas City. And on top of that, the weather's in Kansas City's favor. It's going to be like around -5 degrees, which is going to be perfect for Kansas City. And Jalen Waddle's still banged up. We don't know for a fact how healthy he is.
Raheem
Xavier
Mostert?
Howard's banged up on top of that too. And the Dolphins have some injuries that are super concerning going into this game. And the fact that Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, those two guys are out. And the fact that Kansas City, the whole entire year, their biggest struggle has been the pass protection from their tackles.
Right.
And so Miami loses their two top pass rushers on top of that. It's no way Kansas City loses this game.
Yeah. No, I think Kansas City, I think they're in a pretty good spot here with all the injuries, like you mentioned. I mean, even a guy that was, he was in the race with Christian McCaffrey for the most touchdowns by a single player this year, non-quarterback, Raheem Mostert. He might be out for this game as well. But I mean, last time these teams played, you expected a big game from Tyreek Hill, of course, playing his old team. He was held in check for Tyreek Hill's standards. He had 8 receptions for 62 yards, and you're like, hey, if you have Tyler Boyd put up those stats, you're in a pretty good spot. Even T. Higgins putting up stats like that, you're pretty happy with it. But for a guy like Tyreek Hill that has his explosive ability, 8 receptions for 62 yards is pretty good because of how game breaking he can be on any given play. But Patrick Mahomes is 9-2 in his career at home in the postseason. And so losses don't come frequently. And I'd say even if some of those guys were healthy on the Miami side, it's hard to go against the best player in football. And at the end of the day, when it comes to playoffs, two teams that you can make an argument either way, I'm going to go with the team that has the better quarterback. And to me, no doubt about it, it is Patrick Mahomes. So Kansas City is my pick here. Who is your pick for this game, Amir? As again, like you mentioned, a lot is in Kansas City's favor. I didn't even mention Pacheco might have a good game, but your thoughts here and your prediction.
Taking Kansas City.
Kansas City, both of us taking Kansas City. I guess this is a good point to, segue to why do we have basketball? Why do I have a basketball jersey up? This is completely unrelated. I'll make it quick. Bakari, he joined us on Tuesday, and he joined, and right before we started the show, he had a beanie on. So I went and grabbed a beanie. I saw Amir when he joined, he had a basketball shirt. I'm going to put some basketball stuff up. So if you're confused why we're talking about football, yet we have basketball stuff up, just know I'm trying to mess with my co-host here. But then we talk about probably the least interesting matchup this weekend, and that's no shade to either team, or maybe it is, right? The Buffalo Bills, 11-6 here, and they've been a different football team ever since they lost to the Eagles in that crazy overtime game. They were 6-6 after that point. They win 5 straight. They're in the playoffs. They're the 2 seed after being out of the playoff picture for a majority of the second half of the year. They play Pittsburgh here with no TJ Watt. Your thoughts here, because I mean, there's not much to add on my part. I guess the only thing I want to add here is that throughout all time in Super Bowl history, when these two teams met in the playoffs, the Steelers have a 2-1 advantage in playoff games. Not that that matters for these two teams, but it's an interesting stat nonetheless. But your thoughts and prediction in this matchup?
The Pittsburgh who? Man, this team shouldn't be in the playoffs. I don't know how they snuck in. I mean, the Bills by 30.
Yeah, the Bills by 30.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can also, see this one being a very weird game because of the cornerback
Yeah.
situation in Buffalo. Maybe George Pickens has a couple big plays, or Deontay Johnson. I could see this game maybe being like a 17-13 game. Regardless, Buffalo, for the both of us, is going to take that home. So, given our predictions here, the second round matchups in the AFC would be as follows. The Baltimore Ravens coming off of a bye week. Of course, they would take on the division foe, the Cleveland Browns, the 5 seed. And that's a very interesting matchup because divisional matchups, it's hard to beat a team twice in the season, let alone 3 times. But I mean, twice for the Baltimore Ravens. And I mean, when we were healthier, they didn't beat us, right? And we had a Deshaun Watson on our team with a banged up shoulder. So I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup. Of course, Joe Flacco versus the Ravens. A lot of storylines there, right? But then we have the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills, rematch of their game in the midseason, where they had a fantastic game as well. So 2 very interesting matchups, Bills, Chiefs, Ravens, Browns. That is our AFC predictions for this weekend. And then we move over to the NFC side of things, where we have the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers. Of course, there's a lot of history between these two teams. We could start at the head coaching spot. Mike McCarthy had a decorated career in Green Bay. He's now with Dallas. And throughout the last 2 years, he has a 1-2 record. And this is a team. I mean, it's the Dallas Cowboys. They always have the roster. They have the talent. And we talked about it just last week, where shout out to you guys. That video did amazing. Where there's different expectations depending on your situation. If Mike McCarthy is having this success in, Minnesota, he's going to get praised more than in Dallas. Dallas, you have Jerry Jones. You're supposed to win Super Bowls. And Mike McCarthy has not done that. So I think this is a big, high-pressure situation. But your thoughts on this matchup, as you have one team that on paper is a very, very big favorite. But to me, I think this game could be closer than a lot of people are giving credit for.
Yeah, this game could definitely be closer. And, the biggest controversy for the Cowboys, obviously, we talk about it every single week. It's winning against teams above 500. It's crazy we're still talking about this come playoff time. But, the Cowboys, we honestly don't know what to expect. And, seeing, Mike McCarthy, seeing how low this roster is, I mean, there's no reason why this team should not be possibly having the number 1 seed and be having a bye right now. But the fact that they're playing Green Bay, a team that they have a lot of history with in the past, it kind of brings some concern. But, I think Dallas has enough talent to get them over the hump this week. Weeks after this, I'm not sure. But this week, they should be able to slide through it, no problem.
Do you think there's any chance of a Jordan Love masterclass here where Dallas just lets the moment get too big for them, or they don't take Green Bay seriously enough? Do you think there's any chance here that Green Bay can pull off an upset?
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see, Dallas not taking them serious. But, in my opinion, I think this Green Bay's defense has been a roller coaster ride.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest problem for me, going into this game. And Dallas, the thing about them is like, Green Bay's already shorthanded. They're already not, as loaded as Dallas. And so I think Green Bay's gonna make a lot more mistakes. Even if Dallas goes in and plays around, Green Bay can't make any mistakes because Dallas can flip that switch.
Yeah, I mean, I think, CeeDee Lamb's been unstoppable no matter if teams are single covering, double covering, triple covering. I think no doubt he's going to have a big game here. And but I think Jordan Love, like I mentioned there, I think he's going to put up a fight. And who knows, maybe we can get one of those memorable moments that Rodgers did so many times there in Dallas over the past couple of matchups in the postseason. So far we've had the same exact answers for every game. 2 matchups left. Maybe that can change, but let's continue on here as we have the Detroit Lions, the LA Rams, the 3-6 matchup, as it's the Sunday night game. It's the Sunday Night Football, and I think this is the most anticipated matchup this weekend. I could be wrong, but to me, even as a Browns fan, I think this is the matchup I want to see the most. Where on one hand, you have the Lions, okay? Jared Goff, he is a different player when he's home. So this team should be a lot better this weekend than we've seen, of course, in bigger time matchups. And then you have the Rams. Matthew Stafford had a decorated career in Detroit. He left Detroit. He won a Super Bowl in his first season after that with the LA Rams. So a lot of history here. Stafford returns to Ford Field, but this time it's in the postseason. Your thoughts here about this matchup? No Sam Laporta. I do want to throw that out there for the Detroit
That's
Lions.
huge.
And I think that was huge because they didn't really need to play him last week. But your thoughts here about this matchup?
I have a love-hate relationship for the Lions. I'm rooting for Lions
Oh,
fans,
we know.
but for me, the thing that I can't stand the most is I can't stand, false expectations. And up to this point, the Lions are 12-5, the Rams are 10-7, and on paper, everything's pointing towards the Lions. But I'm actually going against, the underdog in this game. I think the Lions are favored by 3 points, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
3. Yeah.
But I'm taking the Rams on the road to win this game. And, if you look at the second half of the Rams season, they won 7 out of the last 8. The only loss was, to Baltimore, in overtime. And, Stafford is playing lights out. In this past 8 games, he's thrown, 1,900 yards, just under 2,000 yards,
Yeah.
16 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. And I think he's around like 67 completion percentage.
Insane.
And, that's the difference maker for me. And the fact that, the Lions are losing Sam Laporta, and the fact that, this Lions team has been a roller coaster ride, just like Dallas. The defense has been inconsistent. The secondary has had major issues. And, you're going against a Rams team that is hot on all cylinders. You're going against a Hall of Fame coach who's been in this situation before. And, when I look at this Rams team, I think about, a couple years back when they were 9-7 and going to the playoffs, playing at Seattle against a loaded Seahawks team and winning on the road and shocking everybody and being a competitive playoff team. So I'm taking the Rams on the road.
I agree with you here. My heart says the Detroit Lions here for one man only. If you guys know me personally, I don't know what it is. I like those possession receivers, but Amon-Ra St. Brown. One of my favorite receivers, if not my favorite receiver in the NFL currently. So my heart tells me to go with the Detroit Lions. And of course, I'm a Browns fan. I know, what it's like to be a fan of a franchise that has not gotten over that hump. And especially when they make the playoffs, they don't get many, they don't get far into the postseason. So I know what it feels like from a fan to fan perspective, but my mind and logic tells me I agree with you here. I do have the LA Rams winning this matchup, and we're going to talk about it later when we talk about Super Bowl favorites. But call me crazy. I think there's one clear cut that me and you both have. But at number 2, I might have this LA Rams team because they're getting hot at the right time, and they have the quarterback. To me, the best coach in the NFL as well, in Sean McVay. I've stood and I've died on that hill for the last 5 years. To me, Sean McVay is the best coach in the NFL over Kyle Shanahan. And I think, they have the coach, they have the quarterback, they have the star talent on both sides of the ball. Now, let's name them here. Aaron Donald, of course, on the defensive side. But I think, like you mentioned, they're getting hot at the right time. They have all the tools. And I think Detroit, they just might crumble under the pressure without one of their star tight ends here in the postseason. But with that rushing attack, they definitely have a chance. But again, my heart tells me go with David Montgomery, go with Amon-Ra, some of my favorite players. But my mind and logic tells me the Rams are going to get this one, and I think pretty easily, as shocking as that might sound. But then we get over to probably the second least interesting matchup this weekend. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 9-8. They host the 5 seed Philadelphia Eagles. And I have an interesting stat here, so stick with me here. I think it's very important, or at least interesting to note. Philadelphia, they've lost 5 of their last 6 games. And in that stretch, they have a -8 turnover differential. In the last 6 weeks for Tampa Bay, they've gotten hot, of course, but they have a +4 turnover differential. So I want to ask you, Amir, of course, I think I know who you're taking here. However, that turnover differential could be all the difference because we know
That's a
Philly gets
major
behind,
problem.
yeah, when Philly gets behind, they kind of crumble, and there's starting to be questions about their head coaching staff. Do you think Baker has a chance in this matchup if that defense can generate a couple turnovers?
Oh yeah, Baker could definitely, cause some problems. And the Eagles are the worst rated pass defense in the league. And, it's more name than game. And it's honestly crazy, the fact that, you let your D coordinator walk and all these problems are happening. I'm looking at the Eagles, these past 6 weeks, I've kind of defended them like, okay, they went through a gauntlet. They won the first half of the gauntlet. But at this point, it's, now it's kind of concerning. I thought they weren't playing their best football. And then, you go ahead and play some key starters last week, which you had to, and put yourself in the best situation. So now A.J. Brown, I mean, he might be out this game.
Yeah.
This Bucks pass rush is a really good pass rush. And, on top of that, I mean, this Bucks offense is something to be concerned about, with that struggle in the Eagles defense. But personally, I'm still going to go with the Eagles here. It's still playoffs. And so, hopefully I'm not holding to, that high of a standard or, expecting too much out of them. But in my mind, I'm thinking, it's no way they lose to the Bucks.
No.
It's just no way.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very interesting, this Eagles team, because me and you both said, or just to be clear, who are you taking in this matchup?
Taking Philly.
We're both taking Philly here, but I think it's very interesting because me and you all season, even when this team was 6-1, 7-1, 8-1, all the way to 11-1, we came up to this to this podcast every week this season, and we've said the Eagles are still not playing their best football, whether they were hot and they were on top of the world, or over this last month and a half where they've been on a bit of a skid. We've come up here and said that the Eagles are not playing their best football. I think it's officially gotten to the point where we're like, maybe this is just who the Eagles are. Maybe they're not. Maybe they haven't rekindled that magic from last year. Maybe this is just who they are. They've taken a step back, and I mean, rightfully so. This team was like 14-3 last year. They were on top of the world. I mean, they were top 5 offense, defense. Everything was in their favor last year, and I think we saw that potential. And maybe we just got blinded by what they've done in the past. That we kind of failed to acknowledge. Maybe this is just who they are. Regardless, though, I think, like you mentioned there, I think Eagles can at least pull it together for this week. Maybe Devontae Smith has a big game. I don't know. He hasn't had one in about 4 weeks. So, Eagles here from the both of us. Any last thoughts about Super Wildcard weekend before we get into our power rankings?
No, I mean, this week is, going to be a fun week. I'm hoping the Browns can pull through and shock the world, man.
That would be the best case scenario, no doubt about it. But then we're gonna get into our top 14 rankings for Super Wild Card Weekend. Let us know down in the comments, of course, what you agree with, what you disagree with. Should always be tons of fun. But without further ado, let's get into it. At number 14, we both have the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think we both share the same sentiment when we say this team is, not. They have the head coaching, they have the talent, but their star player is going to be missing in this first postseason game. And quite frankly, if Jacksonville doesn't sell the bag, they aren't in this spot. So to me, they are the worst team left in the postseason. But your thoughts here about the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah, I mean, they, find a way to get in. That's pretty much to it.
Yeah, absolutely. At number 13, we both also have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're also going to have a lot of the same teams here on the bottom half of the list. Tampa Bay, again, they have, they've been fun and they've had their moments. However, when it comes to winning these big time games against big time opponents, we don't know if we want to trust Baker Mayfield and the rest of this unit compared to these big time teams. I think that's all it comes down to. At number 12, the Green Bay Packers. You guys know I'm a big Jordan Love fan. Jordan Love, I've been telling you guys in the friend group for years, this dude is going to be able to take over for Aaron Rodgers, and not only take over for him, but he's going to have that same fire, and I think he's going to have this team in the same spot Aaron Rodgers was having them for so many years. And then at number 11, Amir, I'll let you take the floor. The Houston Texans. Any thoughts about them so far?
Yeah, I mean, the Texans have always, been just outside the top 10 all year long.
Yes.
With Stroud, with that passing attack, even without Tank Dell, Stroud is still playing amazing. I think, this team was literally on the verge of, moving into the top 10. If Stroud doesn't get hurt, miss those couple of weeks, this team could literally be, a higher seed right now.
Yeah, I think I had him as high as 8 before CJ Stroud went down, of course, in the weekly rankings. But then we shift over into the top 10. We start here with the Philadelphia Eagles, of course, the reigning NFC champions. Tough matchup this weekend, shouldn't be, but tough matchup for them against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Given all the injuries, of course, we're still taking Philly in that matchup. However, they're at number 10, and they dropped 4 spots for me, 2 for you. And right now, again, they have the talent, but can they put it together when the time is right? And then we move over to number 9. The Kansas City Chiefs are at number 9 for you. I have them at number 8. I'll give you the floor here. Why are the Chiefs this low despite having Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, I left them this low. Just based off of the way they've been playing. And, I'm the kind of person where it's like, I'm not going to rank somebody based off of how good they are, but more so how they're playing.
Right.
And right now, they're playing like the 9th best team in the playoffs right now, which is why I have them so low.
At number 8, you have the LA Rams. I have them at number 6. We'll talk about them here soon. But of course, we're both pretty high on them coming into this postseason. They're getting hot at the right time. Anything else to add there for Matt Stafford and the crew?
Not much to it. This team is a fun team to watch. That's like you just mentioned. If I'm looking at some teams that's scary, this team is on the list.
At number 7, we both have the Detroit Lions, a team that I've been super high on. At one point, I had them as the number 1 team in football. That, of course, crumbled in my face, and I got made fun of for weeks. Anyway, you have them at number 7 as well. Any thoughts here about the Detroit Lions? They're home, and right now, I mean, you have them over the LA Rams. Maybe that is who you picked in that matchup. You guys will have to skip back to find out. But any additional thoughts about the Detroit Lions here?
No, not much. This Lions team, has been inconsistent. Just like I keep bringing up. I think there's secondary issues that might hold them back in the long run in this playoff run. But as of right now, I have them as the seventh best team.
But then we move over to your number 6 team. I have them at number 9, maybe the most explosive team in football, like we mentioned, the Miami Dolphins. Why do you have the Dolphins here over teams like the Lions, the Rams, even the Chiefs, and of course the Philadelphia Eagles here this weekend?
Yeah, you might think I have them too high, but personally, I feel like this Dolphins team matches up well. All these teams are under them. And I think their passing attack, their explosiveness, despite all the injuries, they still have a great head coach, great run game, in the chain and all that stuff. And, I think if they were to match up against all these teams, they definitely give them a run for their money.
No, absolutely. I have them low for the reason that you mentioned there. Just the injuries, they're piling up at the worst time. As again, we've seen other teams like the Cleveland Browns where they've had injuries throughout the entire year, so they've had to adapt all year, and they've had time to find that new identity. The Dolphins, I mean, it's all kind of piling up right now, and if even some of their star guys are ready this weekend, they're not going to be 100%. So I just moved them down a couple spots, and we're still waiting for those big time wins. Moving over here to the top 5, and again, I'm spoiling 1 and 2 because, well, you at home, you know who 1 and 2 are. It's just a matter of which order. Amir and Amir both have the Baltimore Ravens at 1, the San Francisco Niners at 2. And again, you can argue each way here, but these teams played. The Ravens won. They get the number 1 spot. Both teams have the number 1 seed. But then we go over to number 5. And Amir, who do you have here at number 5? Looks like you got the Dallas Cowboys, but why over some other teams here on this list?
Yeah, Dallas, they're a team that's loaded. In my opinion, they're probably the 3rd best constructed roster in the league. And like they kind of broke that narrative, in the season that they can win, big time games. They were pretty much, the reason why Philly started to decline and fall apart. They went ahead and beat, Detroit, which was a huge one in my opinion. That's controversial, obviously. But I think this team is still legit. But preseason, I had them as my Super Bowl favorites. That obviously changed now because what we've seen in the regular season. But this team is still a great constructed roster. In my opinion, Dak has been throwing the ball the best in the league. And I had them as the 5th best. And those 2 teams ahead of them, I think they're undoubtedly better.
Yeah, no, I'm at number 4 too, and to me, I think it is an argument between 4 and 5, just because one team's healthy, one team doesn't have all their star players. But regardless, same thing there. They have the offense, they have the defense, but can they get it done? This is the same story, different year for Dallas. Can they get over the hump? At number 4, this might be some bias. And you know what? If you want to call it bias, I'm okay with that. Let us know in the comments. The Cleveland Browns at number 4 for you. They're at number 5 for me. And just like I mentioned with the Dolphins, this team is just resilient. I think they embody the city of Cleveland. I think this is a team that after, even though they've suffered so many injuries to starting players, might I add, they've continued to fight and they've continued to find a new way. Like you talk about each and every week, we were a run-heavy team, early in the season. That's always been Kevin Stefanski's identity. We've switched to an air-raided offense with Joe Flacco. We're just adapting. And I think, to win at the highest level, you need to be able to adapt. And we've done that each and every week, despite all the injuries. But any additional thoughts here about the hometown team?
This Browns team, people might call me biased, but personally, this team has looked amazing. Despite the injuries, the way they reacted to it, fought through it. This Browns team plays harder than any other team in the league, in my opinion. Only the team you can make the debate for is Baltimore. But having 26% of your salary cap, hurt, still winning games. The track record of the teams that they beat. The only team in the league that beat both the number 1 seeds in each conference. This team is undoubtedly the 4th best team in the league, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And we beat some of these teams with an injured quarterback or no quarterback in
Yeah.
the Niners game. We had PJ Walker, so basically no quarterback. At the number 3 spot, we both have the second best team in the AFC, the Buffalo Bills. This is a team that, again, is getting hot at the right time. They've won 5 straight games. They're going to have a relatively easy matchup as far as playoff wise this weekend against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are banged up. I think, this is a team that most would argue is the biggest threat to the Baltimore Ravens. I'm not going to fight it too hard, but I think the Browns might be the biggest threat to the Baltimore Ravens, and that would be our second round matchup, of course, in our predictions. But any thoughts here about Josh Allen and the Bills? Can they finally get over the hump, just like the Dallas Cowboys?
Man, this is a really scary team. The fact that Josh Allen isn't playing at Josh Allen standards and they're still just running through teams, it's honestly scary because, in the playoffs, he might flip that switch. And when he does, it's lights out.
Absolutely. But that is our top 14 heading into this weekend. Next week, of course, there's only going to be 8 teams remaining. The Elite Eight is maybe a good way to put it. We'll rank those teams, of course. And then after that, we're going to have top 4, and then we're going to have a Pro Bowl week. And then, of course, Super Bowl season is right around the corner. But then let's look at some screens that you guys aren't going to see for a couple of weeks here. The race for Caleb, or maybe even Drake May, as all the reports as of now are multiple scouts inside the Chicago Bears organization prefer Caleb Williams. And of course, all the reports say they're also going to hang on to Matt Eberflus for at least one more season. So I think they have a very interesting offseason coming up. Where is Justin Fields going to end up? Very interesting offseason here for the Chicago Bears. But this is the official draft order, of course, unless some trades happen. The Bears via Carolina will have number 1. Washington, after losing 8 straight and firing their head coach, they're at number 2. 3, we don't know what's going on with Bill Belichick, but what we do know is they have a shot at Drake May at number 3. At number 4, Kyler ruined his team's chances at Caleb Williams, like we predicted. And they're still here at number 4, maybe in the running for a guy like Marvin Harrison. And then at number 5, the LA Chargers. They enter the top 5 after losing Justin Herbert and going on a big losing streak, firing, of course, Brandon Staley and then Jeff Smith. They have an interesting offseason ahead of them. What head coach wants to take that job and take that pressure? I don't know. But if they can get the right guy, of course, we know the talent and the team that LA can be. No pun intended. But let's get into our final screen here, a screen that you guys all love at home. The upset picks of the week. You have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over Philadelphia. I have the Packers over the Dallas Cowboys because, like I mentioned, I think everyone's overlooking this Green Bay team like they have been the entire second half of the year. Jordan Love has been a different quarterback. And in Aaron Rodgers' first season of starting and Jordan Love's first season of starting, Jordan Love has way better numbers. I think this game can get interesting if Dallas doesn't take them as serious as other teams. And Green Bay might, pull off another upset over the Dallas Cowboys in the postseason. But why Tampa Bay over the Philadelphia Eagles?
The one thing we both can agree on is that, as long as Dak's been in the league, we've never seen the Cowboys collapse as bad as this Eagles team now. I mean, this Eagles team, has been, man, one of the worst collapses, in my lifetime that I've seen from a team so talented. I think if it was no better time for the Bucs to win, this would be the perfect time. I mean, the fact that you're at home, you somehow get a higher seed than Philly, and the fact that, Philly is trending down week by week, the defense is looking bad. The fact that their star receiver might not even play this week, I think everything is pointing towards, a possible upset for Tampa Bay.
No, I think what's interesting about Tampa Bay is let's say they do win that, and let's say the Rams do beat Detroit. That is, the Rams are going to have the San Francisco assignment. So Tampa Bay will be having to face, either Detroit or who's the 2 seed. They're going to be playing probably Dallas in the second round.
Yeah.
So I think they're in a position where maybe they can make some noise and, of course, make a deep run. I know Baker's hoping for that for a big contract, but 2 very interesting matchups there. My hot take on the week is that there's going to be at least 2 overtime games this weekend. Of course, those are always this is the time of year where we want to see overtime. Of course, especially if your team's not in the game, you want to see games come down to the last minute, instant classic kind of games. To me, I'm going to say 2 of these games going to overtime. But you have some Rams receivers, the same pairing you had a couple weeks ago. Well, what's your prediction here for Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua?
Yes, a few weeks back, I actually had the same prediction and it didn't hit. But now, I think this is the perfect week for it to hit. My prediction is that Puka and Cooper Kupp are both going to have 100-plus yards receiving. And, based off of us seeing how tough, receivers have been given this Detroit secondary week by week, Seeing the past week, seeing Justin Jefferson put up 190 and then 140 in both the times they played them, seeing CD put up 200 plus, and seeing that both these guys both could destroy man-to-man coverage. The fact that they have an elite offense and elite quarterback to throw them open, get them open against this team, I think everything's pointing towards them having a huge game this game.
Yeah, I mean, I got another hot take. I think Amon-Ra gets more than both these guys combined. Anyway, moving over here to the player of the week. You have a hometown guy in Joe Flacco. Why do you have Joe Flacco here in his 39-year-old season? Why do you have him, as the player of the week this week?
Black around and find out. I got Joe Flacco just like a few weeks back, seeing how Houston can stop the run and forcing, trying to force Flacco to beat them with the arm. And, Houston regretted it. And I think it's going to be the same thing over again. And, seeing Amari Cooper back healthy this week, Elijah Moore 100% healthy, and Njoku healthy, I'm seeing a repeat, of Flacco dominating this team on the air again.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully for Houston Texans fans, you don't have Amari Cooper go for 300 yards, whatever he did yet again in just a few weeks. But for me, the player of the week is going to be Isaiah Pacheco if he's good to go. I'm almost positive a guy like him is going to be, playing through any injury he has. Ironically, if Pacheco is not good to go, I'm just going to go with an extreme hot take, extreme player of the week in Kadarius Toney, a guy who's failed the Chiefs week after week after week. Kadarius Toney hasn't played good football since he was a Florida Gator. However, I think if Pacheco's not good to go in this snowy game where Kansas City needs a spark, I'm going to go with a guy like Kadarius Toney because he's just that shifty in a snow game like this. Maybe he can make some guys miss and actually be relevant in this offense and in the NFL. But then we talk about Super Bowl favorites, and you have the San Francisco 49ers like you've had for a couple weeks, and I finally moved off of the Philadelphia train. I finally moved off of that train, and I will agree with you that I do also have the San Francisco 49ers, but I think that's pretty obvious that, it's going to be either. So I want to show some love to another team. I want to show some love to the LA Rams. I think, of course, me and you are really high on them. I think we both think that they can go pretty far in the playoffs, no matter who they play. So to me, I think they're actually probably my third team right now. My second or third team to win it all, I think, is the LA Rams. But your thoughts here about the Niners and maybe even shed some light on a dark horse you might have in the postseason.
Yeah, I'm behind this Rams team just like you. I hate, sort of, being obvious and picking the Niners, but I mean, I think
Sometimes
this Niners
it's
team.
too obvious.
Yeah, exactly. I think their path to the Super Bowl is so much easier than the AFC. I think they're going to get to the Super Bowl. Brock Purdy isn't going to turn the ball over 4 times again, no matter who they play against. And, I think, this team is just so loaded. And the fact that, your star core players have been there before in 2019. I mean, you still got Fred Warner, you still got Kittle, still got Debo. You got those main guys and even more. And, for my dark horse, I'm going with the Rams. I mean, we said all the reasons earlier. I mean, this offense is scary. Seeing how easily they're dominating on the air and seeing how well Kyler Williams is playing. I'm like 100% sure he's playing this week.
Yes.
And seeing how legit this team is and seeing them get better defensively as well, on top of having a Hall of Fame coach that's been here before a couple years back. This team is by far the scariest team in the NFC aside from the Niners.
Absolutely. But that is ultimately going to do it here for today's show. Again, another Thursday in the books. But now, I mean, we're not going to have too many more of these, Amir. we only got about a month left of the NFL season. I don't want to sit here and say Amir's done after the NFL year. But who knows? Who knows, Amir? We've been throwing around some ideas off the podcast. Maybe one day Amir can start something of his own. Not that we don't welcome him here, of course, but
maybe.
We've been throwing out some ideas. Maybe something crazy can happen. But Amir, any last thoughts here? Episode 130 in the books.
No, man. This is gonna be a great week. Make sure you guys put your phone on Do Not Disturbs. Cheer y'all teams on.
Yes.
And lock in, man. It's gonna be a great week.
Yeah, I'm wishing all fan bases luck aside from the Houston Texans this weekend. No,
and the Steelers.
And the Steelers, even though I don't have I don't have to worry about them too much. But anyway, that's going to do it here. We're going to see you guys next weekend. Again, of course, good luck to all your teams this weekend. But until Tuesday, stay happy, stay healthy. We're out of here.